Two Indian army jawans were brutally killed by Pakistani army regulars who had sneaked across the line of control, and this has taken place in Poonch in North Kashmir in the wee hours of the morning today. According to army sources, the Pakistani army regulars were involved in this attack in the Mankot area of Poonch sector. The firing took place in fact around noon. Two jawans were killed and another was injured. There has been, remember, an escalation in the ceasefire violations by the Pakistan army in the recent past. They have been attempting to push terrorists across the LOC into the Indian side by taking advantage of the inclement weather. In the last 1 month alone, Pakistan's army has violated the ceasefire agreement nearly a dozen times. This despite all the goodwill gestures that India has made towards its neighbor. We remember hosted the Interior Affairs Minister just 1 week ago. The Pakistan cricket team also played a match in India not more than 2-3 days ago. Most of these firing incidents were in Rajouri, Uri and Keran sector to help infiltration attempts. The recent one, most brutal and most provocative. Repeated provocations by Pakistan, its army. This time it is not the mercenaries who are regularly pushed into India by Pakistan by giving them covering fire. These are Pakistani army regulars who walked across the border into India and brutalized two of our jawans. Horrific reports coming in exactly how that attack took place. Defense correspondent of Headlines Today, Shiv Arur, has been the first journalist to have broken that story. He gets us more details now. What more are you learning from your sources, Shiv?
Well, we need to, bring out these details in as sensitive a manner as we possibly can, Padmaja, because these are early hours yet. The next of kin, the families of those two jawans, Lance Naik Hemraj and Lance Naik Sudhakar Singh, it hasn't been long since they heard about the tragic death of their loved ones. So we'd like to apply as much sensitivity as we possibly can in bringing out the gory, horrible, horrific details that we're getting from our top sources within the army in Kashmir. We understand that both these jawans were actually beheaded by their attackers. We can confirm through our sources in Kashmir that both these jawans were actually beheaded by these Pakistan army regulars who the army suspects were, comprised that team which actually came across the line of control in Mendhar sector late this morning. And the even more horrific detail which we will put out because it's important to list here for the record as we cover this story minute by minute, that the decapitated heads of both those jawans, either one or both of them, have actually been taken back by the Pakistani soldiers across the LOC into Pakistan, perhaps as trophies, perhaps as proof of the kills. All of that we cannot confirm, but our sources are telling us that this brutal, inhuman act, which harks back to some of the worst traditions of the Pakistan army, are visiting once again. And Lance Naik Sudhakar Singh and Lance Naik Hemraj of that infantry unit, who were part of that area domination patrol, who were ambushed by infiltrating Pakistan army regulars, now completely indistinguishable from terrorists who they facilitate the entry of, actually perpetrated this unspeakable horror where they have not only mutilated their bodies, they have chopped the heads of these two jawans and taken their heads back inside Pakistan, according to sources. This is not an official word from the army just yet. We are awaiting an official confirmation from the army about other details. What we can also confirm is that apart from the two deaths of these two jawans, tragically, Padmaja, no more injuries. No other soldiers were injured apparently in this ambush.
All right, Ashit, to stay on with us for a moment, because joining us on the phone line from Lahore is Headlines Today's Javed Ansari. It's been confirmed by our defense correspondent here in India, Javed, that these were Pakistan army regulars who came into our country and brutalized our soldiers. Is Pakistan going to pass this off also as the work of someone not related to the army at all?
Padmaja, we have no official word from the government of Pakistan or any of the major players in Pakistan. Everybody is feeling ignorance here. However, in some time from now, we will probably be at a function where the Prime Minister of Pakistan is likely to be present, and this is a question I'm sure all of us will pose to him, and we will elicit an answer. For now, we have tried to make contact, tried to call people, but nobody is reacting to it. Everybody is feeling ignorance. And it's ironical that, there are hosts of journalists from SAARC countries attending a conference to promote regional cooperation and friendship between SAARC countries, and this was addressed by Shahbaz Sharif yesterday, and earlier by India's foreign minister in Amritsar, and today the Prime Minister of Pakistan will address us. And everybody's been talking of peace and of cooperation and of bearing the past. But incidents like this are a rude reminder that, that a lot more needs to be done. And incidents like this fly in the face of everything that authorities in Pakistan have been saying or talking about peace.
All right, Javed, just stay on with us for a moment. Hamza Amir also joins us on the phone line from Islamabad. What are you picking up from your sources within the Pakistan Army and government? Have they made any reaction at all to this horrible attack by Pakistan Army men on Indian Army men?
As I said, there is no official confirmation of the incident from both the Pakistani government and also from the Pakistani Army. But it should not be that, a few days before there was an email that was sent out by the Pakistani Foreign Ministry in which it was clearly said that Pakistan protested against unprovoked firing from the Indian side on Pakistani border, in which Pakistani soldier died. So if there is any sort of a truth in that incident, then I think this is basically a retaliatory thing that has been done by the Pakistani Army. And, probably it is something that is also a tradition between Pakistan and India, that borders have always been of the sort in which unprovoked firing incidents and people crossing from in and out of the border is a very frequent process that happens. And I think this time around when Pakistan and India already are working towards peace and stability, there are still a lot of nerves as far as soldiers are concerned, as far as armies of both the countries are concerned, as far as border security is concerned. Pakistan and India unfortunately does not talk about these issues when they talk about bilateral relations. They talk about trade and all. And this is something that needs to be concerned that, whatever is decided should be implemented with later in spirit, and also orders should be followed up by to the soldiers of both the countries, that they should not take laws and regulations into their hands and try to use them to basically settle down their own personal grudges of cross-border firing.
But that seems ridiculous, Javed. The fact that there is even a suggestion that these could be Pakistan Army men who, on their own volition, have decided to walk across the line of control to avenge, as it were, what happened on Sunday, where one Pakistan Army jawan was killed allegedly because of unprovoked firing by the Indian Army. Is that what seems to be the suggestion coming from Pakistan?
If indeed that is the suggestion, Padmaja, then it's absolutely ridiculous, senseless. It doesn't make sense. No army, border security forces and rangers stand eye to eye at the border, and incidents have not happened. They have not. Unless they get the orders from above, no soldier from either side, no soldier will dare to do this. So therefore, the Pakistani establishment has a lot to answer, and for now they're feigning ignorance.
All right, Javed, just stay on with us. I also want to bring in headlines today's Shiv Arur, who's getting us regular updates on exactly what happened, how this entire ambush was carried out. The crucial detail here is, Shiv, and what more are you learning about it? Where are these Pakistan Army regulars? Were they able to make a getaway? Are there more of them? What's the situation right now?
Were able to make a getaway, apparently, Padmaja, immediately after the actual attack. Apparently, there was a lot of fog cover, there was a lot of mist, and making use of that mist, which they initially used to actually ambush this area domination patrol, they used the same, inclement weather to actually sort of shield their escape and their retreat back across the line of control. Like I said, after brutalizing these two jawans, massacring both of them, and actually taking some of their body parts back across the line of control as trophies, according to what our sources are telling us. Lance Naik Sudhakar Singh and Lance Naik Hemraj of that infantry unit. Now, we also can confirm through our sources in Jammu that there were no other injuries. These two jawans tragically were, brutally killed by the Pakistan Army regulars. That's what the army alleges they were. But none of the other jawans, none of the other soldiers in that area domination patrol, in that unit, actually sustained any injuries. So, it's pretty interesting. I think we're still waiting for a few more details about precisely how this ambush actually opened out, how it actually played out in Mendhar. Were automatic weapons used? Was it only close combat weapons? Was there something else at play? Were there also terrorists involved apart from the Pakistani Army regulars? We're on our phones right now with our sources. Also, Shujaul Haq is speaking to his sources both in Srinagar and in Udhampur. And we're going to try and piece together this entire attack. But it's absolutely horrific because, Padmaja, as we've been saying here, if those were soldiers, if it was a number of Pakistani soldiers who crossed the LOC, came inside India and conducted an offensive operation, killing 2 soldiers, that is a mini Kargil.
Absolutely, and that is the crucial point that needs to be driven home for the government as well. I want to ask you, Hamza, as someone who's been trying to speak to your sources within the Pakistani government, is there at least an attempt to try and identify which was the Pakistani army unit involved in this particular episode? Hamza, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. I'm sorry.
All right, we seem to have... Yeah, Hamza, has the Pakistan Army or the government said anything about the possible identity of the Pakistan Army unit involved in this entire episode?
Well, I've spoken to 2 of the people who are insiders of the Pakistani Army and also a few of the government officials. No one is actually even aware as for now of this incident. They do not want to even comment about it. So revealing the identity of anyone who is dead is basically far away from what their knowledge is actually accepting to tell us, because they say that they are not even aware of what has happened. They need to find out more details and then they'll be able to comment on what has happened. So right now Pakistan basically has an eye, a closed eye policy on anything that comes in from India. Let it be Mumbai attacks or let it be a cross-border fighting incident. And they always do that. Unfortunately enough, what is the dilemma in Pakistan is that, the military forces have a very lenient sort of a relationship as far as their checking and accountability of abiding of the law is concerned. And unfortunately, this is what has happened on this regard as well. If there was something that happened on Sunday from the Indian side, from someone who came in and shot a Pakistani soldier, it was a retaliation that has been done from the Pakistani side, and they have tried to make their presence be felt as well, going into the borders and beheading the Indian soldiers, which is basically violation not only from the Indian border side but also from the Pakistani rules and regulations as well, and they should be treated accordingly. So that as an example can be set, because right now as we speak there is a delegation in Pakistan which is here for peace from India, and I think this should be taken forward and not anything. No one should be allowed to violate any rules and regulations, and also relation between Pakistan and India.
Javed, we know our political editor Javed Ansari, in fact, is a part of that delegation. Javed, we know that India is adamant, India is insistent that we should maintain cordial relations with our neighbor, with Pakistan, and ensure that the peace process moves forward one baby step at a time, as it was said earlier. Can we expect that at least this time around, given the horror of what has happened today, that a strong line will be taken by India? Javed, can you hear me? Alright, we'll try and get back Javed on the line from Lahore in just 1 minute. But going back to Shiv, even though this is off the record information that we're getting, but even if such an argument were to be made that it was some Pakistani army soldier who on his own decided to walk across the border and engage in retaliation for the incident on Sunday, it would be a ridiculous argument to make. Alright, we seem to be having a bit of a problem there, but we'll get back to Shiv also in just a while. This is what has happened. Let's just break this down for you right now. 2 Indian army men have been brutally murdered by Pakistani army regulars. This has happened in Jammu and Kashmir, in North Kashmir. In fact, an area domination patrol of the Indian army was out and they were ambushed by Pakistani army regulars and butchered. We just spoke to Hamza, in fact, Shiv, a while ago, and he said that what his sources are telling him is that perhaps what has happened today is retaliation for the episode on Sunday where one Pakistani army jawan died in alleged firing by Indian soldiers. That, even if that argument was to be bought, would be ridiculous.
Well, it's ridiculous, and even if it's true, it's only, one of a handful of possibilities, Padmaja, because remember, it's not like Pakistan hasn't done this before. Ceasefire violations, infiltrations by terrorists and Pakistan army regulars have been reported before. It's not like Pakistan has needed a provocation to infiltrate terrorists or regulars and, perpetuate violence in this country. They've been doing it for a long time. Now they've got a direct provocation and they're doing it again. They just have a reason. Let's be very clear about one thing. Pakistan has never needed, something to point at before actually infiltrating. They do it all year. Like I've been saying, 70 infiltration attempts, 70, ceasefire violations alone in 2012 along the LOC. Now, having said that, where does this leave the situation right now? So far in 2012, in 2013, there have been two ceasefire violations already. The one that happened 2 days ago, and the one that's happened, today, in which two jawans have been killed. It's been a week of the new year, and there have been 3 soldiers killed: 2 Indian, 1 Pakistani, 2 ceasefire violations. What does that tell you about the levels to which the government has actually taken this issue? Is the ceasefire that India and Pakistan signed in 2003 November, is it even worth the paper that it was signed on? The fact is, Pakistan has unilaterally spat on this ceasefire repeatedly, hundreds of times since 2003. This year will be the 10th anniversary of that ceasefire. But, for those on the ground, and if you pick up the phone and speak to any commander, commanding any kind of unit along the LOC, they would probably point at this ceasefire document and laugh their loudest laugh, because it is the most worthless bilateral agreement between both countries, simply because Pakistan has to violate the ceasefire if it is to keep the pot boiling as far as Kashmir is concerned. If it does not violate the ceasefire, it cannot push terrorists in, and that's why this agreement is a complete joke.
Well, Pakistan is insistent on keeping the pot boiling. What is the response of the Indian government? Remember, like Shiv just said, there have been repeated provocations, hundreds of them in just the last year alone. This is the response we got from the MEA.
The fact is that in the early hours of January 6, Pakistani troops in the sector commenced unprovoked firing on Indian troops. The roof of a civilian house in Churunda village was damaged in the Pakistani mortar fire. Indian troops therefore undertook controlled retaliation in response. Therefore, we deny that Indian troops had crossed the line of control in the Rampur sector or had violated the ceasefire.
In fact, former Director General of Military Intelligence, retired Lieutenant General Ravi Sahni, joins us now on the phone line. General Sahni, this is not just a simple infiltration. Unfortunately, we have to call infiltration simple now, but those are fairly commonplace. This time, it's a provocation of the most horrific kind, where Indian Army soldiers have been brutalized. It's like a war crime, only this is peacetime.
I think you can expect this from Pakistanis, because they don't behave like soldiers. Actually, brutalizing the, adversary, inflicting all sorts of injuries on that, is done by hooligans, not by the soldiers. Unfortunately, we continue to tolerate this sort of this nonsense, and this encourages them, actually. And somebody has very correctly said, they have carried out numerous violations of the ceasefire. They have pushed in infiltrators, ad lib anytime they want to, and we keep tolerating it, and we keep extending our hand of friendship. Now, I'm not a warmonger at all, but this type of incident which takes place boils my blood. This is just not the way we should allow our soldiers to be treated. And do they understand, Pakistanis, that we are being tolerant to them, actually? And tolerance doesn't mean that you continue to raise the temperatures, because the consequences can be really horrific. But unfortunately, they refuse to understand this simple logic. You see, if you continue to provoke the way they are doing so, it can result into things which get the two countries into a spin which will be very difficult to stop.
Do you think, General Sahni, that is the intention, to bring things to such a point that the aggression is escalated?
You see, I don't know, because their army has their own very rapt thinking. Actually, it is not rational at all, but they continue to think in a strange fashion. So if it is their job, if it is their intention to continue to provoke us and create an incident, I really don't know. This is the way they are going about it. You see, the point is that a certain inadvertent, incident which can result in a fire or something and somebody gets killed. But this is deliberate, unprovoked action wherein they came inside and they regular patrolling the soldiers were doing. If they had been shot in ambush, it's different. But to brutalize them and to do all sorts of tricks on a dead body, I mean, it is something absolutely unacceptable.
General Sani, would you, as the former Director General of Military Intelligence, read something more into the pattern that has been developing over the last few months? We've seen an escalation in the number of ceasefire violations, and now this, what has happened because Pakistani army regulars, the army men have come in. These are not just infiltrators, not mercenaries, but these are army men who came onto Indian soil. Do you think that there is more happening than meets the eye?
I don't know, we'll have to look into it. And in any case, what has happened is, over a period of time, the way the regulars behave is exactly how the, jihadis would behave. They are actually, if you really ask me, it pains me to call them regular army if they can't restrain or train their soldiers. This is the way these people always act. And it is now a requirement to, tell them that we won't take this nonsense in future at all. Because you continue to tolerate it. You continue to, carry out your normal sort of actions to increase, as they call, the amity between the two countries. This is the results we get.
But amity what? At the cost of our army men's lives? Certainly not.
No, it is not. It is not at all. And they should be sternly told about it. And not only told, I would absolutely, we should promise them retaliatory action actually.
Absolutely. But General Sani, also just to make some things very clear, because one can assume that this response will be coming from Pakistan sooner or later, that their army men were not involved, or if some army men are identified, they will say that these were rogues from within the establishment. Nothing that a Pakistani soldier does will be without a go-ahead from the highest quarters, isn't there, sir?
Absolutely, because this is the normal story. Every time they'll try to pretend as if whatever actions have been taken and not been taken by the regular army, and we know there always is the involvement of the regular army, and all these actions are planned. So that's what is, unacceptable. That a regular army tends to behave like a rogue army. Unfortunately, is a very strong word, but I want to use them. There is a law of chivalry. There is a system which, we operate in. And such unacceptable things are never done by honorable soldiers. I like to ask them, is this what they are bringing their army to? Each one of them, they are training them to be, less than honorable soldiers?
Absolutely.
So then they should be treated in such a fashion that we tend to give them respect, because you are also supposed to respect your adversary if they are soldiers. But if they are less than honorable soldiers, then they must be treated as such.
Absolutely. Strong words. Strong words, General Sani, but absolutely pertinent, because this is not the behavior which behoves soldiers. This is not the behavior that is expected from a soldier, the kind of brutality that was inflicted on Indian army men. 2 of them brutally beheaded and murdered. Thank you very much, General Sani, for sharing your views with us. Another defense analyst, Commodore Uday Bhaskar, joins us now. So, what do you read into the episode of today, as well as what happened 2 days ago on Sunday?
Clearly, I think this rather barbaric sequence of events that we have seen is indicative of a pattern that we associate with the Pakistani army and its use of quote-unquote irregulars for advancing a covert objective. What I mean by that is that, as General Sani has rightly pointed out, there is a code, there are certain protocols when you have regular armies engaging with each other. But mutilation, beheading, these are acts that we have associated with the irregular, also referred to as the Mujahideen battalion that operates in that part of the LOC. So my reading is that this is again perhaps illustrative of the long challenge as far as India is concerned in dealing with a steady aggression which is in the form of a covert/proxy war, where the Pakistani establishment uses these troops whom they have used in the past. After all, we just have to recall Kargil.
Commodore Uday Bhaskar, what do you think should be the right response from India? Should it just be limited to diplomatic channels? And if yes, exactly how?
So I think tactically the Indian Army has got a certain, again, procedure by which they can calibrate their own response. But while we leave that to the army and the commanders on the ground, I think at the political and diplomatic level, this is the kind of act that would have to be, again, I think, very, very determinedly brought into the public domain. And at a time, when we are talking about improving relations with Pakistan on other fronts, whether we talk about trade and MFN, or we talk about sporting ties and cricket, I think this is a place where we have to hold their feet to the fire and ask for what I would call as a response from the civilian establishment, which is a principal interlocutor, because the government of India does not talk to the Pakistani military.
Right.
It is a civilian government, and I think we need to really put the focus on this and this particular act.
Absolutely.
And have a response which, as I said, operationally our own commanders and our professionals know how to calibrate the response.
A calibrated response, but a firm one needs to be given to Pakistan. Commodore Bhaskar, really appreciate you sparing time to speak to us. Let's get a reaction from across the border now. Retired Lieutenant General Talat Masood, defense expert from Pakistan, joins us now on the phone line. So your first reaction, is this the work of Pakistani army regulars, rogues or irregulars? What are you hearing?
Well, I think if this incident has happened as you are reporting, then surely it is that of the militants. It just cannot possibly be of the military. But what is also very unfortunate that, the Pakistani soldier was killed and one injured on Sunday. So these two incidents really bring about a very major, fact that still, despite the fact that the relations between the two countries have improved.
General Masood, I'm sorry, but I have to interrupt you. We can confirm for sure that these were not terrorists, they weren't mujahids, they were Pakistani army regulars. And at this point, my colleague Shiv wants to come in and make a point.
Padmaja, quick update first on the information that we put out a short while ago. One of the jawans has been found in a mutilated state. He was apparently beheaded and his head has been taken back by those Pakistan army soldiers across the LOC back into Pakistan. The other body was apparently intact. Nobody else was injured. So two jawans, one of them has been mutilated. His head has been chopped off and been taken out and taken back across the LOC. General Talat Masood, if he's still with us. General Masood, it is becoming increasingly difficult to distinguish between Pakistan army regulars and terrorists if their behavior and the things they do to their enemy is so barbaric.
Well, the point is that the Pakistan military will never behead any soldier. This is just not done. This is not what is, we get in the training or the discipline of the Pakistan army. Of that matter, I don't expect the same from the...
इस सेक्टर में नंगी टेकरी के एरिया में काफी ज्यादा जो हैं वो हुई हैं पिछले काफी अरसे से जो सीजफायर वायलेशन इस एरिया में हो रहा है. इसके साथ साथ सांबा के एरिया में कुछ अरसा पहले जो इस तरह की वायलेशंस हुई थी. तो ये एरियाज में ऐसी एक्टिविटी है जहां पर पार से फायरिंग की वारदातें होती हैं. आज भी कोई इस तरह की घटना घटी है. ये कोशिश इनकी रहती है कि कुछ एरियाज को इस्तेमाल करें और वहां से घुसपैठ करवा लें और वहां से मिलिटेंट्स को इधर भेजें. जैसे पुराना जो इनका मेंढर नाला के साथ का ऑपरेशन हुआ था जिसमें 2 मिलिटेंट मारे गए थे और 2 पीछे भागने पे मजबूर हुए थे. उसी तरीके से फिर बीच में इन्होंने कोशिश करी. तो मेरे ख्याल में ये एक ऐसी कार्रवाई है जिसको लेकर के हमें हमेशा सतर्क रहने की जरूरत है. और कुछ एक एरियाज ऐसे हैं जहां ऐसी एक्टिविटी रूल आउट नहीं कर सकते, विश्ववे नहीं कर सकते. पुरानी हिस्ट्री है और अभी भी होता है, बार बार रिपीट होता है. इन एरियाज में हमें अपनी जो बॉर्डर की जो सिक्योरिटी ग्रिड है, डिप्लॉयमेंट है, उसको मजबूत रखना पड़ेगा.
आज का जो इंसिडेंट हुआ है इसके बारे में क्या कहेंगे?
आज के इंसिडेंट के बारे में मैंने अभी क्योंकि
All right, that was the IG of Jammu Range, Dilbagh Singh, talking about the continuing infiltration by Pakistani terrorists and now Pakistani army regulars into India. He's talking about how the security grid needs to be strengthened to stop the terror tap. Maha Siddiqui, our External Affairs Ministry correspondent, joins us on this story. Maha, what is the news that you've picked up from within your diplomatic sources? What is India's reaction going to be?
Well, Padmaja, let me begin by saying that it's rather ironical that on a day when India urged Pakistan to respect the sanctity of the ceasefire on the LOC, just within a few hours of that, we are seeing this barbaric incident being reported. Clearly, as reports are suggesting, it's the handiwork of the Pakistan army, and therefore the diplomatic sources will be one of the very important routes of making Pakistan know that India is absolutely outraged at this incident. As of now, the Ministry of External Affairs had earlier on in the day made it clear that respecting the ceasefire on the LOC is one of the most important confidence building measures between the two sides, and Pakistan has to respect it. As of now, we have not seen a reaction to this latest incident, but what we can understand is that diplomatically as well, India is going to take up this issue in a very strong manner. Remember, despite the fact that the Sunday firing was absolutely unprovoked, Pakistan actually had called the Indian Deputy High Commissioner and given a protest note to him about the firing, which was absolutely unprovoked, and almost blaming India for it. India made it clear today that the firing was not from India's side.
Strong protest, exactly what does it mean? Because the strong protests that we've seen earlier are largely limited either to giving some or the other dossier, or sending a protest note and saying the sanctity should be maintained. What is a strong protest? What qualifies?
Well, in this case, Padmaja, although the Ministry of External Affairs hasn't said anything about this latest case, but from what has been the past precedence is that anything from summoning the High Commissioner to lodging a protest with the Pakistan High Commission in India are some of the ways in which diplomatically this matter can be taken up, apart from the fact, of course, that the DGMOs of either sides are already in contact after Sunday's firing. That's what the Ministry of External Affairs said on record today. But clearly that is not going to be enough, and India will have to diplomatically lodge a protest.
Well, things have moved beyond what happened on Sunday. Much worse has happened since then. The sanctity of the LOC, we can more or less forget about it. That has already been violated by Pakistan. Let me also bring in my colleague Hamza Amir, who joins us on the phone line from Islamabad. Are we to assume, Hamza, that Pakistan is again going to remain in denial about what has happened today? Because when we spoke to Talat Masood just a few seconds ago, he would have us believe that again this is mujahids at work, not Pakistani army men.
Well, I think, this is how it's going to be, because the Pakistan has always denied of any cross-border firing from the Pakistani side. But though on the other hand, Pakistan has always protested on anything that might have actually occurred from the Indian side. So I don't think that, there will be too much of a change this time around as well. Not to forget, there are 2 soldiers of Indian army that have died, and there is a soldier of Pakistani army that has died as well. This will increase if this does not actually stop over here. And both the diplomatic channels are not actively.
वो आदमी जो है पाकिस्तान आर्मी के कि ये एक उधर बॉर्डर फेंस होती है, अब बॉर्डर फेंस के दूसरे तरफ 100 मीटर हमारे अंदर आके और इन दोनों अपने जवानों को जिनको शहीद कर गए हैं, तो ये एक अकेला नहीं है. दिस इज अ वेरी सीरियस मैटर, एंड द मैटर इज सीरियस बिकॉज दिस इज द टाइम व्हेन दे आर ट्राइंग टू इन्फिल्ट्रेट, एंड दे आर इन्फिल्ट्रेटिंग इन अ बिग वे. हाउ डू दे इन्फिल्ट्रेट? वो इन्फिल्ट्रेट करते हैं कि सबसे पहले उनके पेट्रोल्स आते हैं, पेट्रोल्स के साथ उनके जो इन्फिल्ट्रेटर्स हैं उनको साथ लेते हैं, ये आगे जाते हैं. मुझे पक्का यकीन है कि ये सिर्फ 2 आदमी गला नहीं काट के गए, वो तो ले गए हैं. जो इन्फिल्ट्रेटर्स हैं वो इस वक्त कहाँ हैं? और अगर हम सोच रहे हैं कि वो महेंद्र में है, ये मुझे नहीं पता कि कब ये घटना हुई है, लेकिन महेंद्र से पुंछ है, पुंछ से दूसरे साउथ में है रजौरी. अब उन्होंने आना ही है, और अगर वो पुंछ के थ्रू आते हैं तो वो स्ट्रेट अवे पीर पंजाल के ऊपर होके और गुलमर्ग में पहुंच जाते हैं. गुलमर्ग में पहुंचे, दे आर इन द हार्ट ऑफ जम्मू कश्मीर. तो ये एक ऐसा इंसिडेंट नहीं है जो कि ये तो बड़ी गंभीर बात है और हमें भी इसका बहुत ध्यान से ख्याल करना पड़ेगा कि इसकी रिएक्शन हम क्या करें। मेरा ये सुझाव है कि सबसे